Critic, mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Il y a eu des coups de feu, non?
C'est les Boches.
Ça t'embête pas de rester rue de Grenelle encore un peu? On est en train de changer l'avenir, c'est compliqué, je t'explique.
No ti viene nipote davanti. Noi ne crepia come la mosca.
Hello and welcome to our film show here on Arts 24, where I'm joined by critic Emma Jones to talk about some of the week's new releases. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
Now, the first film is Disney's live-action remake of the 1937 classic Snow White, directed by Mark Webb and starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. Emma, this fairy story seems to have more than just a few poisoned apples for Disney to deal with before its release.
Absolutely. A lot of poisonous speculation going around about the movie and its alleged so-called wokeness.
Okay.
As well as speculation, and it is just speculation about whether the two leading actresses got on, because they both previously publicly discussed very different views on the conflict in Gaza.
Okay.
Then there are no live-action dwarfs to give them the original title from the fairy story and the original film. They have become instead animated magical creatures, so not played by little people. And if Disney made that decision in order to avoid causing upset, didn't quite succeed. Finally, Ziegler also made some comments when she was first cast about the unsuitability of some aspects of the story for the 21st century. She apparently said something along the lines that the prince practically stalked Snow White.
Which is kind of true. I mean, there have been questions about that whole relationship dynamic in the original fairy tale, unsolicited kiss, consent, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all been part of the narrative. And perhaps because of all of this, Disney hasn't gone really down the traditional press route for promoting this film, which is a pretty big deal when you consider how important that 1937 film was to Disney. Yeah. So instead, at a Spanish castle in Segovia, wonderful castle, an inspiration for the original Disney castle, Rachel Zegler sang to a specially invited audience.
Sounds very starry. Well, there was a Hollywood premiere as well, but the press weren't able to ask questions there. The actresses did speak to an in-house video crew at Disney, though. Let's see a bit of the film and hear from Rachel Zegler on what the role meant to her.
This was my father's kingdom, a place of fairness. But the Queen changed everything.
Take him away!
Your Majesty,
What did you say?
the people need some kindness.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated.
This is a classic film that established the Disney name, and now I'm a part of that legacy to some degree, and it's not something I take lightly, and it's just the most emotional experience to see little girls dress up as Snow White, and I hope that they will for years to come.
So since there was so little press around this film, there was a lot of speculation, of course, about the quality of it. What did you make of it?
Right, well, firstly, Hollywood critics have been really positive about it, and I agree with them. 23-year-old Rachel Zegler is absolutely incredible in this role, and I think it's great that an actress with a Hispanic background is playing Snow White. And in this story, the title Snow White refers to a snowstorm the night that the princess is born, rather than anything to do with the whiteness of her skin. And I think Zegler's right. I mean, who wants to have a story like Snow White with 1937 social values in 2025?
Yeah, good
I
point.
really like that idea that this is a Disney heroine who keeps some of the traits from the original animation of charming all the woodland creatures. Yet in this story, she's very much growing into be a leader rather than waiting for a kiss from a handsome prince.
Oh, very much a 21st century heroine there. What about Gal Gadot's role then, and these 7 new magical creatures?
Yes, exactly. Well, Gadot really seems to enjoy this pantomime villainess performance. And it's, of course, a very timely reminder, I suppose, about too much emphasis on outward beauty, I guess, in this day and age. And as for those animated magical creatures, I really like them, animated or not. And you will find these legendary musical numbers still within the film, such as Hi-Ho and Whistle While You Work.
Oh, so it doesn't stray too far then. Well, it resonates, I suppose, with the original. Well, onto a release now, very different, set in Paris during the student protests of 1968, although you don't see much of them in the film, apparently. This is called The Safe House, or La Cache in French originally, by Swiss director Lionel Baillat. It's also the last film where we see the much-loved French actor Michel Blanc, who won the Best Actor prize at Cannes in 1986 for his role in Tenue de Soirée, and perhaps most famous here in France for his portrayal of Jean-Claude Duss in 1978's French Fried Vacation, a classic here for French filmgoers.
Indeed, and he is wonderful in this movie, and he stars alongside 92-year-old acting legend Liliane Rouvert and Dominique Raymond, and it's a story based on the novel by Christophe Botansky. It also has a great performance from a child actor. He's so good in this, Ethan Chimenti, playing simply Le Garçon. He and his Jewish family, they live a life around an apartment in central Paris that the family have been occupying since before World War II. And over the course of these few tumultuous days in 1968 with all these protests, the whole family have to confront some really unpleasant family history. What happened to Grand-Père, played by Michel Blanc, during the Nazi occupation of Paris? And it's an interesting question to ask whether comedy really works for this. You know, there's some real laugh out loud moments, but it's quite shocked laughter that it provokes.
Oh, OK, so treading a fine line there with this sensitive subject matter. Well, here's what some French cinema goers thought of the film, a word from the director and that talented young actor, Ethan Chimenti.
On dirait les profs.
C'est on est dans le shérif.
Il suffirait d'enlever la... Qu'est-ce que tu fais là?
Il y a un chat caché là-dessous.
Quand je me suis glissé dans cette cache, c'était en 1942. Je ne pensais y passer que quelques semaines. Allez, viens.
One person who's missing in the audience tonight, and that's Michel Blanc. It's weird for me that the person who gave me so much emotion during the film, well, I can't give that back to him.
We see his humour, his personality. We're reminded of his character in Les Bronzés, but he's a lot more serious and solemn here. It's very touching.
It's always very moving to see an actor play his last role.
My favourite moments were our discussions about classical music. I started whistling a piece of classical music once and it started an endless conversation. We're even late for many of our scenes because of that.
T'es sûr que tu veux pas que je porte?
Non, elle dit que c'est moi qui l'accompagnerai au dessin.
Oh, well, there's something very simple and childlike about this film, as you would expect with a child narrator. And there's a little bit of a touch of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the idea of this family all sitting together on one bed. And I think that it's a film, though, you have to sit with in order to discover the tenderness within this movie, because it is quite heavily stylised at the start. It draws on a lot of tropes, I think, from French TV and films of the 1960s. You know, it's a story of arrested development of a family because they've never really confronted a traumatic past. Instead, they all coalesce around this one little apartment, which they see as their safe place. So it's a film that really deals with huge subjects, but it's quite small in the way it deals with it in scope.
It looks very touching, actually. Well, we're moving on now to the winner of the Silver Lion, so the runner-up prize at the Venice Film Festival. This is called Vermiglio. It comes from Italian director Mauro Del Pero. Let's take a look.
Signore Gesù, nutri la nostra famiglia.
Si sa mai che non che venga i tedeschi.
I tedeschi non è più. Certo che scampava la guerra era proprio da vigliacchi.
Sì, se fosse tutti vigliacchi non che sarò più guerra.
Vuoi che torni la guerra? Che è segreto?
Sei triste che fa gli occhi brutti.
Emma, I know you loved this film, and the look of it is extraordinary, that winter snow, so stark. Is that why you're a fan?
I think absolutely the landscapes are completely extraordinary, and so we should name check the cinematographer here. It's Russian Mikhail Krickman, and he also did 2017's Oscar-nominated film Loveless, and he's also done the upcoming apocalyptical musical The End, starring Tilda Swinton. And the vast whiteness of the snowscapes of northern Italy, you know, just have to be seen on the big screen. They are, and they really inform the story, which is set in 1944, so towards the end of the war, and two soldiers seek refuge in this remote alpine village. One of them, Pietro, played by Giuseppe Domenico, he'll go on to marry the daughter of the local school teacher. She's called Lucia and she's played by Martina Scorinzi. So the family is huge. The wife is usually pregnant. The family are often going hungry. And Vermiglio could just be this observational drama about the rhythms of a way of life, I think, that has all been but lost in Europe, plus some really interesting family dynamics. But at the end of the war, Pietro has to return home to report his marriage, and that's when the film shifts to a completely dramatic turn. You know, this is her second feature by Mara, and I think she's showing the same promise as Paolo Sorrentino.
Wow.
Incredible.
So hopefully we'll be seeing more from her in the coming years.
I hope so.
Well, finally, to a Tunisian film now, Aïcha by director Mehdi M. Barsaoui, whose previous film in 2021, The Sun, won the Best Actor Award at the César, the big prizes here in France, for Sami Bouadjila. Emma, what did you think of this one, Aïcha?
I really rate this film, and that's partly because of a standout performance from relative newcomer Fatma Sfar as Aïcha, and partly because it asked the question, you know, if you can change your life and just get away with it, no questions asked, would you do it? And this is what happens. She starts out life as Aya. She has a dead-end job as a hotel cleaner. She has to help her parents in the evening. They're planning an arranged marriage for her that she doesn't really want. And then one day there's a bus crash. Everyone thinks she's died. She takes the opportunity to rob her ex-lover and off she goes to Tunis to start a whole new life. The thing is, life lived independently is often quite difficult for some Tunisian women, and Aya/Aïcha is going to discover all of that. It's a really good watch.
It sounds like a very universal conundrum and a glimpse into contemporary Tunisia. Thanks so much for the tip and thanks for the roundup this week, Emma. We'll leave you with a preview of that film, Aïcha. And do join us here next time for more movies, arts and culture here on Arts 24. There's more news coming up just after this.
خرجت قلت نجرب حظي في تونس. اسمعني، ايش قولك لو كان نخرجوا الليلة؟ يا بنتي باش تهبط هالبس الكل ليلة.